Good morning, everyone. I am Roseanne Faust. I'm the CEO of SAMCETA, but I'm here this morning as the Deputy Chair of Chamber San Mateo County. I want to thank Amy Buckmaster and her team, Felicia and Maggie, for putting Good Morning San Mateo County together. And today we have three fabulous presenters. But first of all, I want to say I am here in place of our Assembly Member Pro Tem, Kevin Mullen. And Kevin and his family recently lost their dad, Gene Mullen, who I am more than sure all of you are familiar with. So I think for all of our panelists and our attendees, our thoughts and prayers are with Kevin and Jessica, the boys, and their family this morning. So thank you for attending here. This is, again, Good Morning San Mateo County. These programs are designed to be a platform, to share information, to share ideas, to ask questions. And I'm going to ask everyone to put their questions into the Q&A. We may get to some of them, or we may just email you the answers later to give our presenters a chance to really thoroughly address any issues that you might have. So for this morning's panelists, and then I'm just going to do quick, very brief introductions about some guests that we have today. We have our county supervisor, Don Horsley. We have the mayor of San Carlos, Mayor Parmer-Lohan, and we have our vice mayor, Sara McDowell. Excuse me, Sara, I definitely know your name, Sara McDowell. What I find interesting, their bios are really impressive, but I know these three individuals, and I just want to say, public service is not for the faint of heart. And these three individuals, two fabulous women and a fabulous gentleman, they give their all to our community. So while you may not like all of their decisions, know they do it with heart, integrity, commitment, and compassion. And I wanted them to hear this right out of the get-go this morning and really know how much we appreciate them so dearly for their commitment to not only the city of San Carlos and the county of San Mateo, but our greater region. So Sara, Laura, Don, thank you so much on behalf of Chamber San Mateo County, SAMCETA, and all of our organizations. So with us this morning, we have State Senator Josh Becker. We have Mario Rendon representing the Office of Assembly Speaker Pro Tem Kevin Mullen. We have Marcy Dragan representing Supervisor Warren Slocum. We have our mayor, our vice mayor. We also have council members Ron Collins and John Dugan. We also have two former mayors in San Carlos, Tom Davids and Andy Klein. So welcome. I'm going to turn it over to Don. Again, I want to say thank you to the chamber. Please put your questions into the Q&A. Not into the chat, which I don't think you're able to do anyhow. Questions go into the Q&A. And again, thank you to our mayor, our vice mayor, and our county supervisor. Don, would you please kick it off?
Thanks, Roseanne. And just want to thank you also. You've been a great partner with the county during this most recent pandemic and economic crisis. So really been a rock for the county. I was thinking back this morning about when I started in office in 2011, not when I was a sheriff, but 2011 as a board member, I asked my predecessor what the major issues were in the district. And he told me, and honestly, he was probably accurate. He said the biggest issue was there was a quarry off of Highway 92, and that's the biggest issue you'll have to confront. And, I thought, whoa, that's pretty easy. Well, it wasn't the biggest issue. What happened is that, after that, we were still reeling from the economic downturn. Cities and counties were making cuts. And I remember some of the initial cuts that we had to make, and having been a department head, I went through the budget with my staff, and each one of the staff person tore the budget apart. And we did the best we could in terms of using the reserves that we had built up. My predecessors had really built up. But we did have to make some really painful cuts. And I remember we had to cut one, it was a long-term care facility in Burlingame. It was a Burlingame Health Center. And it was such a public, so much public outcry that we had to actually have the board meeting in Burlingame at a hotel. And there were people crying, and we had no choice But to make that decision to cut that facility, because it was losing somewhere in the neighborhood about 9 million a year, which doesn't seem like much today, but all departments were taking big cuts, and we were subsidizing our health department to the tune of about 57 million, and that was going to be a big hit. We simply didn't have the funding. Well, as all things happens, there's an up and a down, and the economy changed, and in no small part due to the efforts of all of our local businesses represented by Roseanne and Samsita. And thinking about Gene Mullins, we did look for additional revenue at the time. I remember we put on 3 taxes initially, and we did pass 2. One of them was Measure T, which you think that would really fail. It passed. It was a sales tax on rental cars at the airport. And we figured that voters were pretty smart. They probably figured that they were never going to have to pay it. So it passed, and our other 2 failed. And then later on, we did Measure K, Measure W, or Measure A and K. Measure W came way later, but Gene Mullin was the chair of all those. And so working with him, he was a master at coordinating. And so he would really be missed. He was really a key figure in the county. But I thought I'd just kind of give a quick recap of, what's happened recently, and really start with, our county manager. And who would have guessed that in 2020 we would end up with a pandemic? And so what we originally, at first didn't really know how bad it was going to be. We had our first few cases. Health department alerted us. County manager, both he and I had been in law enforcement, decided it was really his decision more so than mine, although certainly I was supportive of it. He set up an emergency ops center. And then, the county just shut down. And so we had a huge impact on the economy. Life as we knew it all of a sudden came to a standstill. And one of the things that our county manager did, he set up a really broad communication system for all the elected officials. And I know all of us have been on those calls. Initially, there were 2 or 3 times a week, just to keep people informed of all the things that the county was doing. So we would have some of our other elected officials on those briefings, from state legislative leaders. Congresswoman Jackie Spear oftentimes participated. We had people from the health department. We had our public health officer making presentations, answering questions. And of course, we were working constantly with the state to try and adjust some of those measures that, sometimes we didn't agree with some of their shutdowns. And so we worked with them, and eventually I think we came to a pretty good meeting of the mind between us and the state of California. In any case, the other thing that was set up, and I'm not really sure where this idea came from. It may well have come from Roseanne, for example, but we set up San Mateo County Strong. And initially the county put in, 2, 3, 4 million, something to that effect. Bruce and I could see nodding her head. It was something like that. And we ended up, by the time it was all said and done, raising between the county, CARES Act, cities, the cities also contributed heavily, as well as some private individuals. We ended up with $151 million that we poured back into the county. That was really unprecedented. And I don't think other counties did anything near that. I mean, everyone had to pivot and do things on their own, but I haven't seen anybody in the Bay Area do anything of that magnitude. And one of the things that we did, I'm really proud of, is that we do have a significant number of people in the county who are undocumented, and they weren't going to get help from the federal government, and not even the state government, although I think that adjusted to some extent, but they definitely weren't getting help from the federal government. So we created an immigrant relief fund, and that raised in a neighborhood, I forgot the exact number, it was either 11 or 15 million. We had one, John Sobrato, challenged us initially with 5 million, and we eventually ended up matching that. And many of those undocumented people, we thought that they're mostly in North Fair Oaks and basically unincorporated Road City, and also on the South Coast. It turns out they were the number of undocumented people is in a neighborhood of like 50,000 people or so. So we did other things. We worked with all of our core agencies to make sure that people had food, that we took care of rent relief. And we at the same time, well, realtors representing their interests, were concerned about the interest of people who had rental property. And so we did have a measure to assist small landlords. So I think we took every facet of the economy, every facet of life in San Mateo County. And I know the cities were really actively doing similar kinds of things. Some of the things that I really enjoyed the most, and I love San Carlos and I love Road City, the way in which the cities really responded helping their small businesses once we were allowed to do outdoor dining. And by the way, that was one of the things that our public health officer always felt was a reasonable, that's why we argued with the state that if people are outdoor dining, that should be pretty safe. And it turns out it was, and it is. And the cities were very nimble, allowed remarkable changes, shutting down streets, essentially getting rid of parking spaces, little parklets. And, I don't know if that's going to continue in the future, but they were certainly delightful and a welcome relief for small businesses. And then, we would think, gee, isn't a pandemic enough? No, not for San Mateo County. We're going to have a major fire. The fire is mostly in my district, because I have, my district is huge. Geographically, I have the largest district, and I have some really interesting things about the district. I have Atherton on one end, and I have Pescadero and farm workers on the other. In any case, the fire, again, fortunately, we had our EOC operating, and so we just went right into emergency operations on the fire. Myself and the county manager and our fire chief and our head of our public dispatch took drives into the fire area. Not that we were driving into anything that was dangerous. I don't want to imply that at all, but we went down to talk to the CAL FIRE, their headquarters in Santa Cruz. And it was really amazing. It was in a neighborhood about over 1,000 firefighters. And at the same time, all the firefighters had to do social distancing. So we were looking at some of their briefing areas, and all the chairs were all spread apart. We did end up with, it was a system called Zone Haven that was developed in San Mateo County. The fire departments had come to me and wanted to, well, in my district, because I've always feared having wildland fires, especially like on the coast side from Montera to El Granada. So we were always concerned about the potential for evacuation. So our fire chief came up with this app developer who was going to develop an app for evacuation. He called it Zone Haven. So we put about 300,000 into the development of that app before the pandemic, it was before the pandemic and before the fires. So when those fires occurred, we used that system to evacuate 80,000 people without a single injury. I'm not sure we could have done it without that system. Maybe we could have, but the fact of the matter is that it's something that I think the state of California is going to adopt. So there are some, good lessons, I guess, that have learned what we've learned. At the same time now, in my district, I have people clamoring for protecting their homes from a fire. And we have the unenviable task of telling them in some areas, like in El Granada, sorry, we probably can't save your home. We can have evacuation routes, and we can't take care of life safety, because that really is our highest priority. So that was the year of 2020 was a year that I guess will go down in history. It was what a far cry from, all you have to worry about is a quarry, to a pandemic, collapsing economy, and a fire that hits 85,000 acres of well, it wasn't mostly far, it was timber area for the most part. So let me shift a little bit on some of the things that have happened over the last, well, it's a little over 10 years now for me, is that we really are in a position, or, all of the county's infrastructure, our buildings, were pretty antiquated for the most part, with some exceptions. We had to build a new jail, which is, I wish we didn't have to, but we do. That's just a fact of life. But some of the things that I think are really kind of exciting is that we built, completed a new, we call it the ROC. It's a Regional Operations Center. We used that during the pandemic. Fortunately, it came online before the pandemic, before the fires. And that's a building that you may have seen us on our campus in Redwood City. We completed that construction. It was really critical for us. And what the Regional Operations Center houses is our public safety dispatch. So all of fire through the county is dispatched through that system. In the old, previously, that public safety dispatch was in the basement of the Hall of Justice. And if the Hall of Justice ever got knocked out, we wouldn't be able to dispatch fire. So the new building is as earthquake safe as we can possibly make it. In fact, there's actually, unfortunately, there's two big, ugly tanks in front of it. When I saw that, why did we bury those things? And in any case, they're for water. Because in the event that in a major earthquake, you could conceivably lose water, you could conceivably lose, obviously, electricity. So we've got, that system is set up so that we could withstand in any kind of an emergency. Well, not necessarily any kind, but that which the predictable, a major earthquake. And so that we'd be able to continue to operate to provide services to our community. We are in the planning stage for a new building called COB3. And COB3 is, it's right on Winslow. There was a couple of old buildings, we used to call them the Fatco, because it used to be the first American title company. And so in any case, we knocked that building down. The original architect that we had was a really world famous, well, at least world in the United States of America famous. And she came up with a really wonderful design that we loved, but we discovered when, the budget was 100 million and to build it was 200 million. So we had to abandon it and go back to a simpler building. But the simpler building, I think, is also at the same time going to be a wonderful reflection for the city of Redwood City, and I think also for the county. San Mateo County really is the center of Silicon Valley, and that sometimes gets lost with other people, not us, but people outside of the system. And one of the things we wanted to incorporate in a new building is the fact that 70% of San Mateo County is open space, that we have this wonderful groves of redwood. And so the building is not going to be made out of steel. It's going to be made out of what's called, I have to get my little note, it's called compressed laminated wood. And apparently the compressed laminated wood has the same tensile strength as steel, but it doesn't require all of the energy production that you have to have in producing steel. So we're making this building into a platinum level, completely energy self-sufficient building. And some of the ways we do that is really the parking garage that we're building is kind of a little bit down the road, because parking is an issue, even though everyone would like to get cars off the road. The fact matter is we still have more people and more cars. And so we needed to have parking so that we're not jamming up the city of Redwood City. We are working in concert with them to make sure that those facilities can be used also for people visiting downtown Redwood City. And the building, because it's this compressed laminated wood, there's some other designs that really bring features about the fact that we have woodlands in San Mateo County. I think it's going to be a remarkable, welcoming building that does highlight both the modern technology and at the same time the fact that we are in this wonderful area with so much open space. Then I just shift a little bit. I won't go to too many other buildings or anything because I don't want to take all our time. And some of the changes that we made originally when my first county manager was not John Maltby. It was somebody who, Dave Bosch, who, good guy, he left and brought back John Maltby. But I remember when I talked to Bosch, I said, hey, county manager, what do you think is the future for the county? He said, oh, we're probably going to get smaller, or at least in terms of county government. Well, it turns out not to be true, that the demand for services has grown. And we've created a lot of things that I think a lot of this was due to Supervisor Warren Slocum. He wanted he wanted an Office of Diversity and Equity, which we have. He wanted a Chief Equity Officer, which we now have. And he wanted an Office of Community Affairs, which has become invaluable, and that's what helped us in our census that was so successful that I think we're at the top of the state of California. We were much better than we were 10 years ago. And that's going to be really important. And the last thing I will kind of end with is we are at the same time, because it's the 10-year anniversary, basically, or the 10-year time period where you have to redo, do districts based on census. So we are waiting on the census. We're setting up a census commission, or not a census commission. That's a redistricting commission. It'll be run by the League of Women Voters. We're doing some outreach now, or we'll be in a short period of time, and there'll be some adjustments. I don't think there'll be major adjustments in the districts, but I think my district has grown a little bit less than Redwood City and maybe San Mateo, so we'll see a little bit of rejiggering of the lines. But it's going to be a process that is pretty much independent of the Board of Supervisors. So now we make the final decision, but it'll be run by the League of Women Voters, and no elected officials will be on that commission. So that gives you a thumbnail sketch of how the county has really changed. I think we've adjusted. Oh, the last thing I would say, we are working with police agencies. Kind of my idea about having police mental health units, and I wanted, the idea was to embed mental health clinicians, and with 4 police departments, and we will run this program for a couple of years. And the Gardner Center at Stanford will evaluate the results. And our idea was to, change policies and responses. So in essence, I think what I just gave some ideas about some of the changes that the county has made. I think we've adjusted to the times. And it's not necessarily just growth in terms of number, it's also in terms of growth in terms of outreach and recognizing that there are issues today that didn't exist even as short time ago as 10 years ago. And with that, I'll conclude.
Supervisor Horsley, thank you so much. Thank you to the County of San Mateo for stepping up. You stepped up 6 ways to Sunday, and to deploy $151 million of County CARES Act leveraged funds. When folks say that government moves slow, I'm going to go back to that number time and time again. And it isn't just about money. It is about our Mayor Parmer-Lohan and our Vice Mayor McDowell, who are up next. They are going to talk about how the city of San Carlo has risen to the moment, because I really could not be more proud of our county and our 20 cities. And San Carlos, while I am a Redwood City resident, I do most of my shopping and dining in San Carlos. So huge fan, love your city. I'm going to turn it over to the mayor and vice mayor. Again, thank you, Supervisor Horsley.
Thank you so much, Roseanne, and to Amy Buckmaster and the Chamber San Mateo County team for hosting the event today. And thank you, Supervisor Horsley, for the county update. Congratulations, and thank you for the many accomplishments. And I also want to thank those in attendance today. Without you, this work would not be possible. So as Supervisor Horsley mentioned, the current situation in the past year have posed extraordinary challenges. Yet I am deeply appreciative, as many are, and inspired as to how San Carlos and the broader community came together to support one another. And San Carlos is all about meeting the moment. And today we're going to talk about the ways in which San Carlos meets the moment. I am Laura Parmer-Lohan, and as a longtime San Carlos resident, it is an honor to serve you as the mayor of the city of San Carlos. My esteemed colleague, Vice Mayor Sara McDowell, is joining me today to provide our State of the City address. Other council members with whom we work on behalf of you include Ron Collins, Adam Rack, and John Dugan. Also, you may not recognize some of the following names, but trust me, their dedication to the community is unparalleled. Staff executive team members include Jeff Maltby, City Manager, Tara Peterson, Assistant City Manager, Rebecca Mendenhall, Administrative Services Director. Our Community Development Director is Al Savay. Our Public Works Director is Stephen Machida. Amy Newby, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Director. Our City Clerk is Crystal Mui. Chuck Lax, Acting Deputy Fire Chief. Christina Bell, Police Chief, and former Police Chief Mark Dury, who is now the Assistant Sheriff. And of course, Greg Rubens, our City Attorney. It is noteworthy to mention that Vice Mayor McDowell and I follow a very short list of female council members in San Carlos. They include Patricia Benny, Sally Mitchell, Sylvia Nelson, Inga Teagle-Doherty, and Karen Clapper. I thank them for paving the way. And as it stands, we are the only 7 women to ever have served on City Council in San Carlos since 1925. Yet, I hope that there are many more to follow. And for the first time in San Carlos history, we have a female mayor, vice mayor, police chief, treasurer, and planning commissioner chair. Together, along with our council member colleagues, we work in collaboration to meet the moment on behalf of you. And there are so many ways that San Carlos is meeting the moment, especially with COVID-19. To start, San Carlos was the first city within the county to declare a state of emergency and set up the offices of emergency services. This was to enable us to accommodate the cruise ship passengers who were quarantined in our city. City staff and community members partnered to welcome each passenger with handwritten notes and flowers. You can see pictured here. These efforts are deeply appreciated and reflect how and why our community has weathered the storm, by being kind, choosing compassion over fear, and working together as a community team. The city staff met the moment by helping you stay connected. Our communications were scaled up so as to provide you with timely, accurate, and trusted information. We communicated through a myriad of ways: newsletters, websites, message boards, signs, social media, telephone, and more. And when the time came to reopen with modifications, as was mentioned earlier, San Carlos City Council was the first city in the county to act and allowed outdoor dining, closing portions of Laurel Street and investing in water walls and lending staff support to help restaurants and merchants stay open while allowing for physical distancing. And in addition, funds were contributed to the San Mateo County Strong Fund to help small businesses. We love our local businesses and will keep up the fight to help you and our families stay healthy and sustainable. Your altruism didn't stop with the stranded cruise passengers. You signed up to volunteer, and you volunteered to enlist volunteers. Your food, diaper, financial, and blood donations were absolutely swift and generous. Thank you for setting such an incredibly great example for our community. Of particular concern were the seniors in our community. The Adult Community Center staff led the effort to ensure that our beloved senior community stayed connected and well-fed. Curbside chats, as you can see here, meant relationships were maintained and built. To those of you who volunteered to support these programs, thank you. San Carlos cares for the most vulnerable in our community, and we had fun while doing it. Another area that was deeply impacted were the parks, recreation, and culture programming. The staff quickly pivoted to reimagine activities into virtual or physically distanced events, whether it be a holiday-themed 5K for pods or Zoom-based programs. In all of these ways, San Carlos meets the moment. Of course, like many families and businesses, our own city budget also was affected by these challenges. With the shuttering of the economy came less revenue and more challenges to maintain, all the while needing to provide services that our San Carlos families need in times like these. San Carlos has prided itself on a tradition of sound fiscal management. While the city had no choice but to close many public facilities and pause programs, the council and staff found ways to do more with less while continuing to offer critical services and invest in infrastructure. Impressive collaboration and leadership were realized. As you know, we send out a survey every year asking for your input. In the most recent community survey, you shared with us your priorities, and I want to thank you for that. You told us that you want us to manage development, create more affordable housing, manage traffic congestion, ensure we have enough public parking, and of course, public safety is always needed. We listened, and I'm pleased to report that the council has aligned strategic goals to your interests. So San Carlos will be poised to meet future moments. Now, Vice Mayor McDowell will share with you some updates on development, housing, and childcare.
Thank you, Mayor Parmer-Lohan. As mentioned, one of the council's top strategic goals this year is to work with our community to develop an East Side visioning plan. The east side of San Carlos, seen in this map bordered by El Camino and Highway 101, is expected to transform over the next decade to accommodate new land uses in areas such as biotechnology, life sciences, and high tech. In an effort to proactively address this change, the East Side Visioning Plan will take into consideration the pipeline of projects that are coming and aims to create a complete community that enhances San Carlos. Your input as residents, business owners, property owners, and greater East Side neighbors will be critical to the success of this process. As the plan is developed, special attention will be paid to mobility and access, good design that enhances the district's character, and shared resources. The plan will build upon these areas' existing attributes and plan for future desires. This is a concept slide that shows a mobility design we could consider that accommodates cars, bicyclists, and pedestrians in a mixed-use area that offers additional community benefits. We kicked off the visioning plan in January, and it is expected to conclude this September. Although the process is moving along at a quick pace, this timeline notes several opportunities for you to weigh in over the coming months. We will provide information at the end of the presentation on how you can stay informed. As we plan for an increase in jobs on our east side, our council has also made it a priority to focus on meeting our community's housing needs. Every 8 years, the state sets a housing production goal for each region. This process is called the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, and for San Carlos, the state has mandated that we plan for 2,735 new units of housing from 2023 to 2031. In order to address the need for more housing at all income levels, the city is currently updating our housing element, which is the city's primary housing policy document. The housing element focuses on providing adequate housing for all current and future San Carlos residents. As part of this process, the community is asked to provide feedback on where new housing should be built and how dense that housing should be. Our goal is to encourage the creation of a safe, inclusive, diverse, and affordable supply of housing for all income levels. And that is exactly what we're doing. These are photos of 2 affordable housing projects currently underway, one at Cherry and Laurel Street and another on Walnut Street behind Bianchini's. Both projects involve public-private partnerships and will quadruple the number of units offered at each site, all at the lower levels of affordability. As we create more housing, we anticipate that more families will move to San Carlos. Considering that, City Council has also made it a priority to support and encourage the creation of high-quality childcare facilities in San Carlos. We waived fees and streamlined our approval process to make it easier for new childcare centers to open. We also recognized that the pandemic hit our existing childcare providers especially hard. We met the moment, and we were the first city to allocate funds to the county's Child Care Relief Fund, which gave grants to our local childcare providers. These are 2 quotes from childcare operators in San Carlos, noting that the grants help them stay open during difficult times. It is a top priority to ensure affordable, high-quality childcare is available in San Carlos as you return to work. Now I will hand it back to the mayor to discuss some of the infrastructure projects, future plans, and how to stay connected.
Let me focus on the infrastructure changes we've made. In 2020, the city paved 13 streets segments, or nearly 2 miles of roadway, completed 200 sidewalk repairs, working through the backlog, and replaced more than 1,000 square feet of striping and more. As well, the San Carlos Avenue Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project is nearly complete, and many more of these types of projects are underway throughout the city now. We didn't stop there. 10,000 linear feet of sewer mains were inspected, cleaned, and repairs were made as needed. Sports lighting improvements were made at Highlands and Burton Parks, as well as the turf was replaced at Highlands. 40 ADA curb ramps were installed, and Fire Station 16 replacement design work was initiated and recently approved by City Council. As Supervisor Horsley mentioned, wildfires have grown more frequent and devastating in recent years, and we absolutely want to prevent them. Emergency preparedness is absolutely important to us. To that end, 48 acres across 8 parks have been cleared of the combustibles, and the goats will be back this year. They do a great job, and they keep their complaints to a minimum. And while we're on the subject of climate change impacts, we acted this year and passed an ordinance to require use of more electrical-based appliances in new construction to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions from buildings. Additionally, we will be updating the Climate Mitigation and Adaptation Plan this year, which will serve as a blueprint for more future actions San Carlos can take to mitigate these impacts. To learn more and get involved, visit cityofsancarlos.org/climate. Council will be initiating a downtown visioning plan project early next year. The community has been pleased with the temporary closure of portions of Laurel Street, and given this and the incoming office space on the east side, we will be reimagining the downtown corridor, and we will want your help. So these are all of the ways in which San Carlos has met, is meeting, and will meet the moment. As you know, our work together isn't done, and it is an honor and privilege to be of service. I do hope you continue to stay engaged, and I look forward to hearing from each of you on your perspective on what you want to see in our community. I never get tired of hearing from my neighbors. In fact, I love it. With respect to updating community engagement opportunities, we have these opportunities. The wildfire preparedness community meetings and events. We'll be doing a virtual Pride celebration this year, Earth Day celebrations, downtown engagement, as I mentioned earlier, and as Vice Mayor McDowell talked about, the East Side Planning Vision Initiative. And we have a new farmers market location on the industrial area, arts area of our community that takes place on Sundays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you're all invited to join us. It's a really great community gathering and fantastic produce. And of course, there'll be many, many virtual project and public meetings. And you can stay connected in all of these various ways. Go to our city website and sign up for e-notifications. Follow the City of San Carlos on the various social media channels. And we absolutely look forward to hearing from you. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and be well, be safe, and stay healthy. Thank you so much. Back to you, Roseanne.
I want to thank Mayor Parmer-Lohan and Vice Mayor McDowell. And what I would like to ask, because I've been looking through the attendees list, you have a lot of engaged folks that are attending this morning, a lot of names that I recognize. And to help you help the city, what I would encourage all of the folks attending is go out and share bits of the information that you heard this morning. Talk about everything begins and ends with city government in my mind. And what you do for the residents, the fact that you've paved the streets, that you've checked the sewer lines, that you are upgrading the parks, that you are doing fire mitigation. You were one of the first cities to support the county initial $3 million for small business back in the spring. You put in money for small business, and you again put in money for our recent restaurant, brewery, and winery grant program. So I want to thank you. And I want to encourage everyone that's attending is to take the information that you shared and make sure that it gets out to their friends and neighbors. You are doing a stellar job. And the more that we can amplify your work and your efforts, that's how it all works together. And what Supervisor Horsley said about just the money that the county put up and the time and the understanding of equity and all of that. What I'd like to do is I'm looking for some questions in the chat, in the Q&A, and Council Member Collins said, "Good morning, everyone. You're all looking good." So I thought thank you, Ron. We really appreciate that. And then there was a comment from Jim Hartnett to Don Horsley. Bill Petrini was hired by his dad. So his dad was the Coastside deputy sheriff. So that's a bit of more information. But I'm not seeing other Q&As. Maybe for each of you, if you could look a year out, 3 years out, maybe even 5 years out, what do you want the community to remember and to be thinking about as we go forward? What would help you in your roles and help the community? So whoever would like to start.
Supervisor Horsley, want to kick us off?
Supervisor Horsley, could you take yourself off mute? Because we'd love to hear your thoughts. You're almost off. There you go.
I did it.
Yay.
Okay. I have about 20 months to go, and then I'm turned out, and there's certainly a number of people who are looking at succeeding me. I think that, this is really a fabulous county. In my particular district, one of the things that, I really focused a lot on housing, and not so much, public safety in the sense of fire safety, but I've really focused a lot on housing. And things go really slow, and I think we do have the political will. All of our city councils, I recognize it, and obviously the RHNA numbers are significant, and so cities are really recognizing that. I'm really hopeful that the average citizen gets on board as well. And one of the things that I remember hearing a long time ago at one of the sessions from the Chamber of Commerce was that you have to think about your family, think about your children, your grandchildren. And I'm fortunate. I have 3 kids, and they all live in the Bay Area. But so many people can't, and so many people end up losing contact with their family. So I'm hopeful that we can make some greater significant progress in building housing. Same time, there's all kinds of transportation projects that the county's involved with, and Jim Hartnett, as I know, is on the line, and we've worked on this managed lane project, and we're doing things on Highway 101 and 92, and I'm really hopeful that those transportation projects make movement around San Mateo County easier. I suspect I've seen some really interesting innovations about autonomous cars. And so I'm just really looking forward to the greater technology that's coming down the road. I have a car that I leased my car a couple of years ago because I thought I'm never going to buy a gas-driven car again. So I only want a car for the next 3 years, because I think we're going to make some big leaps in technology. So I personally am excited about the technological advances. I'm excited about the fact that we have so many wonderful city council people like Sara and Laura that are the future for San Mateo County. And I'm just really excited to be here to watch them move us into the next generation.
Thank you, Supervisor Horsley. I'm going to turn it over to our mayor and vice mayor.
Great. Thank you, Roseanne. And thank you, Supervisor Horsley. I really appreciate your viewpoint. I think from my perspective, what I would like people to remember, when we were going into shelter in place, it was a really surreal experience. obviously have never experienced anything quite like that in my life. And when San Carlos had to declare the state of emergency and the situation was ambiguous and scary and frightening, I recall, thinking just about the culture that we have in San Mateo County, and Supervisor Horsley referenced this, where we really are a very collaborative community and we do work together. And I remember saying from the dais that, we will get through this together. We will work together to navigate this storm. And, through all the examples I just shared, I think, that was demonstrated not only here in San Carlos, but really across the community. And I would like people to remember that, right? We are a very compassionate, kind, resilient community. We're welcoming and inclusive, and all of those things go together. And as we move forward, I really hope for those people who can stay engaged and involved do. These issues that we're facing are, very much regional in nature when it comes to affordable housing. When I ran for office initially, there was a lot of pushback on development in San Carlos, but the most recent community survey showed us that, through community dialogue and engagement, people come to understand the need for it. And now we are being asked as a council to create more affordable housing in our community. And I think the Home for All initiative that Supervisor Horsley initiated for our community has been really helpful with that. And I know San Carlos tapped into that resource. Climate change is real, and the effects of that are far-reaching from the coast side, and the challenges that king tides are putting pressure under homeowners and property owners there, and just the natural open space, to the bay level rise, and not to mention the wildfires, which we've talked about today. And I think we need to do and take more action there. So again, I think the community could stay involved. And of course, the transportation issues and congestion and traffic, which I think are also all related to our housing situation. So I think if we can address the housing issue and focus on transit-oriented projects, we can, there'll be a cascade of benefit that come from that, including the creation of more childcare. So I'll leave it at that. But again, I really encourage everyone to stay engaged and participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Parmer-Lohan. And one of the comments in the chat speaks to what you just said, which is for a big kudos to you as the mayor, Vice Mayor McDowell, and the current city council, and saying that folks feel heard. So I think on behalf of the resident that said that, they feel heard. And so that engagement is critical going forward, that continued engagement. Vice Mayor McDowell, thoughts?
Thank you, Roseanne. I'll just build on those comments, actually. That's what I was going to say. I think that we are facing a very transformational time in San Carlos. We mentioned today in our presentation about the East Side Plan. We're working on a big housing revamp of our housing element. We're looking at a climate action plan, all really big issues for our community. I'm a mother to school-aged children, and so I'm always thinking about what our community will look like 10 years from now. Will my children be able to stay here and live and own a home? Will they be able to find jobs here in their areas of interest? So I just want to make sure that, getting back to your original question, if we're thinking about 10 or 15 years from now, what does our community look like for our children when they're grown up? And what can we do about that today? And so I think that was a really big reason why Mayor Parmer-Lohan talked significantly today about ways to get involved, because now is really the time to make voices heard and have input into how our East Side transformed and where housing is built, because that will make a big difference to our children 10 years from now. And also, your city government, your city council is the most accessible layer of government. And so, Roseanne, as you mentioned, we do respond to emails, and we're happy to speak by phone or downtown, or if you see us out and about, please do, weigh in and let us know, what your opinions are, because we really do value that input from our community. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
And you really are incredibly responsive. I know I have reached out on some small business issues, and honestly, I can't thank you enough, because you return calls, you return emails. Supervisor Horsley, I'm going to say the same for the Board of Supervisors. I mean, you are responsive, you and your staffs. So thank you for that. There was some earlier questions in the Q&A just about active transportation. You've done a lot of paving in San Carlos. I see the new bike lanes going in, new sidewalks and all of that. So would either of you like to comment on transportation or getting people around and more conducive to bikes and walking? I mean, I think the city has some great walking opportunities.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Roseanne. I'll go ahead and take that. So last year we passed our bike and master ped plan, and during the pandemic, there was a call to action to, create some loops that would lead to downtown, to encourage people to get on their bikes, because we saw a lot more people walking and riding their bicycles. So we took some initial steps there, and just through those few steps, the community feedback to us was that 11% more community members felt comfortable riding their bikes in the area. As we move forward and look at the East Side Visioning Plan, one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is, with the additional workers who will be coming into our community to work on a daily basis, could this micro mobility effort take shape to create, as what Vice Mayor McDowell called, a complete community, right? Can we make it easy for people to get to San Carlos, and once they get here, when they transition either from public transportation, or they are riding a bike or walking, that it's comfortable and safe and they know where to go. We're working, with a lot of community engagement efforts and talking to various community members to get those ideas and input. So I think it's, for me personally, it's a core value and area of interest for certain.
So as we are coming to the end of our time, there's more thank yous in the Q&A as well for your efforts, for your responsiveness. I'm going to ask each of you, and I'll give you a moment to think about it. Over the last 13 months, we've all had to swivel, pivot, be resilient, be adaptable. And is there one word that you would be willing to share with the group that goes through your mind? I have a word, and you've all heard me use it, and it's onward, because it just means moving forward, and so I'm wondering, Supervisor Horsley, Mayor Parmer-Lohan, Vice Mayor McDowell, do you have a word that just kind of runs on that continuous loop in your head that pushes you forward to continue to commit to community?
Yeah, one word: resilience.
Thank you, Supervisor Horsley. Love it.
My word is gratitude.
Love it.
My word is together, because I do feel like our community has just come together in so many ways this last year to support everyone in our community and those, in neighboring communities as well. And it's just been a real honor and pleasure to be part of this community working together.
Well, I feel very fortunate that you are our elected leaders. When you hear words like resilient, gratitude, and together, I think we can go far. And so on behalf of Chamber San Mateo County, on behalf of the citizens and residents, community members in the city of San Carlos, Amy Buckmaster, the CEO of Chamber San Mateo County, and Felicia and Maggie, her awesome team members, thank you so much for joining us this morning for Good Morning San Mateo County.
Thanks for having us, and I really enjoyed hearing my two colleagues, Laura and Sara.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely morning.